Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us. Hi!
Another week, another episode.
Here we go.
This time we're back to just us in the studio, cup of teas in hand,
Peppermint all the way.
and a brownie. And back to talking about buying after a great few conversations with merchies and marketees.
Marketees.
Can we call them that?
I think you just did.
It flowed so well. And also after discussing the reality of retail and the impact it's had on all of us, I think it's worth us taking some time to address that sometimes it's just time to move on and it shouldn't be seen as a negative thing.
No, not at all.
So today let's talk about moving on, changing companies, going from feeling super confident to maybe feeling out of your depth. Sometimes it can be necessary, sometimes it can feel like a drag, and sometimes even a push. But I don't know anyone who hasn't felt refreshed with a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, at least in the long run. Like, it might not feel like it at the time.
First, yeah.
Yeah. Like, and you might yearn for the old days. Like, it's funny how quickly you can look back with, like, rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely like looking back on a relationship that you've got out of and then suddenly thinking, no.
Yeah. Go through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
Whatever they are. Grief and...
I don't know
what the next ones are. But it is. It's like, one minute you go from like, I can't wait to get out of this shithole, to then being like, oh my God, I miss it so much.
Yeah.
My old desk, and I knew what I was doing.
And everyone thought I was great.
Yeah.
In some cases.
And it can be really daunting, like that experience of like leaving like your family.
Yeah.
And like particularly when it's like your first job as well. Like it really does feel like family. And
it's almost the hardest one to leave, isn't it? The first one, because you know you need to go and there might not be an opportunity there for you. So you know you need to go somewhere else for that.
Yeah.
And that can be quite sad.
It can be really sad. But I think you're right. Like leaving them behind to head on to new opportunities. But it can be really about, as you said, like, you know, it's about knowing, one, when you should leave. Mm-hmm. So when you stop learning. And then two, knowing that you can always leave and come back if the opportunity isn't there when you need it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just need to leave to progress to the next step, or like to give you a fresh outlook. I mean, soon enough it becomes like same shit, different place.
Yeah.
Because it often can take you a year or two to get to that kind of headspace. Mm-hmm. So like in those 1 to 2 years, you can like enjoy learning the ropes of a new company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I say enjoy. Like, I love and hate the feeling of joining somewhere new and like not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Like, there's a time where there isn't the responsibility of like knowing all the ins and outs and all the nuances. Mm-hmm. Like, you can do whatever you want because you don't know. I'm new here. I don't know.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But it could also be like really frustrating. Like, as we've said, going from somewhere where you know everything to then somewhere where you know nothing. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like wanting to run before you can walk. Like, just remind yourself that you'll get there and it takes time, and just to enjoy that getting to know everything bit. Like,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And most often you don't go back, but it can be reassuring sometimes to be like,
in the back
I
of your
can
head.
always go back.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you do go back, you'll be bigger and better than you were before.
With new knowledge to bring.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting phrase that I've seen. If you think your job, you should always leave your job if like you said, if you feel like you're not being challenged anymore. And it's almost like it's an easy job, and it's called bore out.
Bore out. Love it. Sounds a bit like Borat, but I like that, bore out.
You know, like you're just not being challenged anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's so true.
It's a bit of a bore out.
It is a bore out. Bore out and move on.
Mm-hmm. So it can be an opportunity to reinvent yourself when you are starting a new company. I certainly felt like that when I moved from one big company to another. I felt like no one knew me there, and I could just be, I could be this new person, and it almost gave me such a sense of confidence because no one would suddenly be like, oh my gosh, where's this new kind of personality coming from? Because you can just, and I'm not saying don't be who you are, but sometimes when you've been in a job too long, it can be a bit stifled. And so,
totally.
And maybe not be given the confidence by the management that you've got there, but actually you're like, no, I can do this. You've trodden on me so much. I need to leave and go and do that and be myself somewhere else.
Spread my wings.
Fly away.
I need to go and spread my wings and be this. Yeah, I was like an ugly duckling that didn't know what they were doing, and now I'm a beautiful swan in this new company. I really like the idea of that, of like the reinventing yourself. But what I always found was like the idea of like refreshing my wardrobe.
Yeah.
Because not only do you get like quite like stagnant and like stuck in a rut with like just the job day to day and like beaten down, but I always found that like when I'd worked for a place for a long time, like I just got in a bit of a rut where I just wore the same clothes every day.
I totally relate to that.
Because it was just like, well, who am I going to see that's new or different, or I'm just going to the same place, and it was just easy. You've got so many things going on in your head, you don't have time to think about what else you might wear. So like while I've got a bit more headspace and don't know anything,
time to plan my outfits every time. Don't have the Sunday scaries. I can
buy a new capsule collection, spend my Sunday trying them all on. Which outfit am I going to wear which day? Maybe even try something new, something daring. Like, ooh.
And that's what gives you as much as we joke about it, but that is what gives you the confidence. You show up for yourself, you dress up, show up.
Yeah.
And you can go into this new job with just a really, really great, new, fresh, positive mindset. Yeah,
maybe wear that jumpsuit or that, denim boiler suit that if you'd have worn it in the old company, everyone would have been like, oh, have you seen what Lindsay's wearing today? Yeah. She never wears something like that. She's got a date. Or that was a brave choice. She's normally always in jeggings.
Yeah, exactly.
And you try something new, and then you don't have everyone be like, oh. Or I remember once, not that I'm suggesting you should do this at a new job.
Oh God, here we go.
But I once went for a spray tan. And it was very much like Ross from Friends.
I was just going to say, was it an 8?
I'm an 8! It was awful. Like, awful. I washed it off, but clearly they'd gone medium. I don't know why. I am so fair. They'd gone medium dark on me, and I had to go to work the next day. And I remember at Murchie that
I remember this. And your hands.
And at Murchie I didn't know that well, was the slight apparent being like, oh my God, what's happened? She's looked like she's gone travelling for an entire year in one night. Like, I just looked like so tanned. And I remember my buyer at the time being like, can I take a picture of you to send to my boyfriend? And I was like, really? Really? But what I was going to say was, because I didn't normally look like that, it was the shock when I turned up. But had I been in a new job and I'd had the spray tan the night before, no one would have known any difference. Exactly. They would have been like, wow, she's a deep mahogany shade for her blonde hair. But that would have been it,
Okay.
Anyway,
so funny.
I digress.
Yes.
When you go to a new company, I guess you've got to remember that, like, not only can you like reinvent yourself, but you can also just show off your skills.
Yeah.
Like you say, like, give yourself some confidence to remind yourself you've got these skills. Like, they've employed you for a reason. And also you've got new perspective to bring.
Yeah. And that's why they recruit externally, isn't it? Because that's what they want. They want that. They want you to
fresh
come in and
eyes.
challenge and be like, challenge back everybody saying, we've done that before, but have you done it like this? And did you do it like that? And did you try it? Did you actually put some decent marketing behind it? And did you really listen to what the customer wanted?
Is that not your biggest bugbear?
Yeah.
It's classic. Everyone says it.
I mean, to be completely transparent, I've said it myself.
I was just going to say I've said it too. We've tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much with your big ideas. But no, we've tried that. It did not work.
Oh dear.
But that's really hard to say that to people. But I think sometimes there can be a real frustration when you're in a company and someone new comes in and they do suggest something and you're like, yes, I have thought of that actually.
Yeah.
But also I think we need to remind ourselves that actually on the other side, it's really nerve-wracking to come in new to a company. Like everyone knows more than you about that company. And it does sometimes give you a bit of a wobble of like, oh my good God, do I even know my job?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why we reach back to some of the previous episodes that we've talked about. You need to start establishing your friendship group, your core people, your ride or dies, like the people that will boost you, give you confidence, like support you.
How are you going to fit in? Like, who are you going to make friends with?
Yeah.
Who are your allies?
Yes, exactly. And also it's important to go into a role and not be too overly confident that you alienate and you haven't spent enough time listening to everybody else and listening to, especially if you're going into a company that's struggling, like you've got to really understand and get to the root of why. And you're only going to be able to do that by getting around everybody, making time for them, and understanding where they've been. And then you can work out where you need to take the company to, especially if you're in a senior role.
Oh, definitely. I've got two very vivid memories of like moving into my first role following a company I had been with for a long time. So I remember thinking I didn't want to ask questions because I didn't want to look stupid and look like I didn't know what was happening. It was a very, very different business to the one that I'd come from. But I know that by my next move, I asked all the questions because what I'd realised in that first transition was that every company works differently.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask questions and you'll get the answers much quicker. No surprise there. And it's so much better than waiting a few months before asking, because by then really like you should know.
Yeah.
I definitely think like always ask, don't be afraid. I remember a new commercial director coming in, and so I didn't think he was stupid. I could see that he was on a fact-finding mission. Like he didn't challenge or critique, or at least for the first few months. He was just observing, and he asked lots of questions. But it then felt like he had valid requests and like he could change processes because he'd taken the time to get to know what we did. Like there's nothing more frustrating
So important
than someone coming in and not even trying to understand what your business is about before suggesting changes to be made.
Yeah, exactly. If they don't know what your job role is, then how do they know they don't need it or need more of it, or
you're not doing it already?
Yeah,
so frustrating.
The assumptions, isn't it? And that's what gets people's back up.
Yeah. Another mistake I found myself doing during my first job move was, I'm really embarrassed by this now actually, but waxing lyrical about what my old company used to do.
Yeah, I used to do that, and I could see the like pain in people's faces.
And I really cringe when I think about it now. But like I would act like it was the holy grail.
Yeah.
Like I didn't ask questions. I just like talked about how great my previous place was, which like if it was so great, why hadn't I stayed there?
Yeah. Well, go back there then.
Exactly. Go back where you came from. But and like it wasn't that amazing, like and I wasn't really giving the new place a chance to show me how things could be done just as well but differently.
Yeah.
Like I must have been so irritating.
But you have to be to learn, I guess. But when you're on the other side of it and you're having to deal with that person that's come in, it is really incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. So I think we've both established you should be asking questions, not waxing lyrical about where you've come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the like big things when you move companies can be the different terminology used.
Yeah, we've talked about the lingo language a lot.
Lingo language, yeah. Like when I remember like moving from one company, like moving from more of a bricks and mortar store to more of an online retailer, and where the word or the acronym CVR meant cover, but now means conversion rate.
Which is very different.
Very, very, very different meanings.
You want to get that wrong?
Same 3 letters meaning very different things. Like, it really threw me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I think so. That's one of the bigger things that, like, it's so simple to find out what it is.
Yeah.
But if you don't know,
and you don't ask,
I remember something saying like, sales B/F, and I was like, and it had pluses and minuses, and I was like, sales B/F, better or worse? Like,
yeah.
what does B/F? Budget/forecast. Well, it makes sense now, doesn't it? But when you're not used to reading a report like that, and you're like, what on earth does B/F mean?
Yeah, and those are the questions where, especially when you're doing your first move, are the ones that you don't want to ask because you don't want to look stupid.
Yeah, and you don't
but
want
ask
to look
them.
Yeah.
You have to, because you're going to look stupid anyway.
And if you leave it too long, you're going to look really, really stupid.
Yeah.
For months, I've been saying it's sales better/first. Rather than sales, budget, or forecast. But it is that. It's that exactly as you said, the lingo language. So we've actually added a glossary as a free download on our website of all the terms that we've come across so far.
Yep.
And if you find that there's some that we haven't included, just drop us a note and we'll add them, because I don't think they should be a secret.
No.
I think they should be widely available for everyone. And sometimes when you Google, because different acronyms mean different things in different industries, you can tie yourself in knots.
Yeah.
And really get the wrong acronym. But I think we'll all do a better job, and we'll do it all a lot quicker if we're not scrabbling around and Googling to get those non-retail specific answers to the acronyms, or like sweating it out, working out who would be the best person to ask without the fear of being laughed at.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a safe space, our website.
It's a safe space. The other thing about moving roles can be not necessarily leaving a job, but it can be just as daunting when you're moving a role within a company.
Yes, yes. I think
you can
that's
still feel
almost kind of more daunting because there's so much expectation on you.
You can feel really out of your depth.
Yep, you come from you've been given this move because you've been known to do such good things on the other department, and you want to bring that to the new department, but the new department works in a very different way, or the new department's been in a really, really difficult time when you've got to unpick why it's all, potentially fallen over. And so the expectation is so much higher on you, and there's all that pressure to deal with, and I think I've been in a situation like that before, where the best piece of advice my boss gave me, I wanted to change things overnight because I'd not been used to working on a department that didn't really have its shit together, and he was just like, you need to take at least 3 months to work out what's going on here. And I was like,
understand it.
Okay. And that took the pressure off, because I then knew what he expected of me as well.
Yeah.
So I could go in and do a bit of a, what did I call it? Kind of do a bit of a case study / workshop to get to a certain point to understand what's gone wrong, what used to work, what hasn't worked, how can we move this, how can we change this.
Almost like a department SWOT.
Yes, exactly.
I like that.
Exactly, like a consultation session.
Yeah, rather than just bulldozing in and being like,
right.
Okay, we need to make this work. This clearly isn't working. This is how I did it on my last team. This is what we're going to do here. Actually, is that going to work? It's almost like we've said so many things, like so many consultancy firms that are a one
size fits all. Boring. Yeah.
And it just doesn't.
No. Especially in a multi-product retailer.
Yeah.
100% not.
Every product has slightly different ways of working. And yes, you can definitely try and standardise certain bits of information, because that can be really useful. But you have to allow for the personalisation of a product. And for a team as well, you might have a different setup. You might have different strengths and weaknesses within that team.
Yeah.
So actually it doesn't run quite as efficiently because of the personality
makeup
types
of the team,
Yeah.
and the turbulent time that they may have been going through. Like, you've got to give people a bit of a break sometimes. Like, if you've been in, experiencing terrible sales for 2 or 3 seasons, like, you're in a slump. So you need that fresh pair of eyes, fresh perspective to come in.
That's definitely when you're going to hear that. We tried that, it didn't work.
Yeah. Oh. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, so that can often be even more challenging.
And what if they haven't backfilled your role?
Yes, which quite often happens.
Yeah, here's a promotion. You're going to be doing exactly what you've done before and some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Been there, got that.
And you're juggling and you're prioritising both of them.
Yeah. So in that situation where you're not backfilled, but you're being given a bigger task and a promotion, because let's face it, they think you can handle it. Mm-hmm. And you then have to really look at what your old job was. How much of that do you really need to do anymore? You've been doing that job for 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Or in as much detail.
Yeah, you don't need to do that job in that much detail anymore, because you can be more confident behind can have more confidence behind your decisions because you've got the experience. So you don't need to do like a really, really, for example, a really, really detailed benchmarking map out of, 5 different retailers and their pricing architecture to be confident that your pricing architecture is right. You have lived and breathed that area for so long that you know that you've got that right. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but it can be more light touch. And in a strategy meeting, you don't necessarily need to build out such a huge deck of a presentation. You go in with your strategy and you've got your points and you can back it up with conversation rather than having to have all that work behind you. So it's just kind of readjusting your priorities within your old role and making your focus on, the more newer parts of your role.
Definitely. Sorry, that was the shittest agreement ever. But yeah, exactly. There can be challenges like whether you're moving to a new retailer or you're getting a new role within a company, but it's about how you deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I think some companies can take the piss and give you a promotion and not backfill your role. And my advice to you would be take the promotion and just vocalize that you really need to see how this is going to go, and that you will need to have a review to see if there's any additional resource that you need, and you need to understand that you've got that support from your management, And
at least then you've got the promotion, and then if you need to leave, you can leave at that level.
Yeah,
because that can sometimes be the bit that you're ready for the next level.
Yeah,
and you really want it, but there's no opportunity there, and that's the reason you leave.
Yeah. Should
we go into a bit of a retail therapy?
Let's. What have we got today? Okay, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
You can take a slurp of tea. Right, okay. Oh, it's called The Resignation.
Sounds very ominous.
Okay, right. When I was a junior merch, the company I worked for was very keen on fun company activities.
Organised fun.
Organised fun. Everybody loves a little organised fun. And particularly enjoyed a fancy dress day. Oh my God, that would be on my worst nightmare. I hate fancy dress. I'm so
really
bad.
Would.
I'm like, yes, I'm a girl. I'm like Rachel from Friends. Yes, I'm a girl who bought a dress and really wanted to wear it. One Monday, who does that on a Monday? It was another fancy dress day on a Monday. That's such a serious day.
That's ridiculous.
Happily, it was also the day I was handing in my notice, as I'd been offered a nice new merchy role. So I had to sit with the head of buying whilst I was in my pyjamas, laziest fancy dress ever, whilst she tried to persuade me to stay, all the time wearing a massive jester hat, unintentionally hilarious.
That's ridiculous.
That's so funny.
Maybe it was some bright spark's idea of how to make Mondays more fun.
I know.
I like that she rolled in her pyjamas though. That's what I'd do if you did. If you make fancy dress on a Monday, I'm just going to roll in.
To trade.
In your pyjamas.
In your pyjamas.
Depends what it is. I mean, I'm not
CEO sitting there in his pajamas.
his pajamas. It depends what kind of pajamas you have as well, right?
I know, it could be quite inappropriate.
Let's just leave that there.
Yeah, let's.
Oh gosh. Okay, so moving on and knowing when to move on. And as we talked with Emma last season, actually, like leaving can lead you to all sorts of places. Like who knew that she would go from working as a BAA on laptops for a supermarket to a buyer for beauty on an online fashion retailer?
Yeah.
Like I remember leaving uni and being told that choose your retailer wisely because you will only move in those circles.
I know, it's a pile of piss, really.
But it
isn't
is.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. And I think that the skills that you gain at each stage and in every different role and the people that you meet along the way can really change the course of your career.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
We shouldn't be scared of it.
No.
And like we said at the beginning, like you can always go back to the retailer that you loved. And some people do go back feeling
they do.
bigger and better, you know, in a sense of like more empowered and more knowledgeable about more than just one company. But like also try different places, go to lots of different places, and it might not always work out. Like I remember almost being a lifer at my first company because I loved it so much, and there is no shame in that.
No, there isn't.
Like
Not at
I'm
all.
always so impressed when someone's been at a company for like 20 plus years and they've grown up with that company. Like the fact that they've managed to get through each of those stages all the way up
and see the company change. And
and like they've just like understand everything about that company, you know? Like the reason I almost became a lifer was because
a lifer.
Sounds
like you're in prison.
It does, doesn't it? Maybe that's not the phrase I should use or the word I should use. But I know that I was in a position where like I had just progressed, climbed the ladder across multiple departments, and I didn't feel stagnant. I always felt like there was opportunity. But it was like once I did feel stagnant, once I did feel a bit stale and like I don't know where to go now, like that's when I knew it was time to leave. Like it was terrifying because I'd been there for so long and it was all I knew. But I knew it was time to move on, try something different. And I think it's a lot more common these days. Like people move around companies, and I think there's definitely a stat for like Gen Z and also other vocations too, like and startups, like that's a real area where it's a 1 to 2 years and people move on. And it's just about bringing new ideas and
keep that freshness coming through the door.
Yeah. And like I'm impressed by that, like by the level of information that's in circulation from the movement of all those people. Do you know what I mean? I encourage that. Like you're learning, you're taking it somewhere else, and you're learning to take it somewhere else. But there's also something really important about having somebody that knows a company inside out. Because sometimes when you lose all that expertise, you can
lose the identity of the business.
Yeah, exactly.
So that brings us to the end of another episode. Here are our top 3 points from today's episode to give you confidence that sometimes change is the best thing to move forwards.
So number 1, knowing when to move on and understanding that when you stop learning, it's time to leave. You can always leave and come back if the opportunity isn't there when you need it. And as we said, come back bigger and better. Number 2, be brave and try something new. It might be a stepping stone to something greater. You never know where your next role might take you, so take every opportunity that comes your way that feels right. Trust your gut and take a leap of faith. Number 3, be open to learning and understanding how other businesses work. You'll gain a better understanding on the whole industry. It can bring about a change in a positive way. And don't irritate people by thinking you already know the best way to do something when you hardly know how the new system works. Think about the bigger picture, not what people will think of you if you ask a silly question.
So next week we'll be joined by one of our very special trauma friends. We started in buying as BAAs before she moved on to pastures new, so it feels about the right time to talk about leaving your first job, moving on, the reality of retail, and the differences between high street and designer.
See you then.
It's going to be entertaining.
Bye.
Bye-bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.